I play Bathsheba Everdeen, who starts her story living with her aunt on a farm, and she's working class and they're trying to make ends meet, and she inherits a farm from her uncle. And so she overnight becomes a very different member of society. Suddenly her social status jumps up and she's in charge of a piece of land, and the story tracks her as she grows up, and she meets these different men in her life who want to marry her, and she tries to figure out if she wants to marry any of them at all. I'd never read the book growing up, so I didn't know anything about the story beyond that it was set in the country, and I knew that there was a character called Bathsheba and one called Oak. But coming to it, I was just so struck by how modern she was and how much she felt like somebody I knew now, because she was so ahead of her time in terms of a Victorian context, and that she was somebody who knew from the get-go that her life wasn't going to be defined by men. I think she's so different to so many characters, especially characters written in Victorian times, because she starts her story turning down a proposal of marriage as opposed to actively seeking it, like so many Austen heroines going out looking for a husband. She starts her story saying, I don't really know if I want to be married. I don't think I do. I'm not sure. And that's just such a rarity. We were lucky to cast 3 brilliant actors, but they all had such completely different roles to take on. And Tom Sturridge plays Troy, who's the soldier who she meets when she's inherited her farm, who sort of whisks her off her feet. Michael Sheen plays Boldwood, who sort of is the smart choice for her in terms of the time that she's living in. He's the one that she kind of should marry if she was being smart, because he has land and he has money and stability. And then, of course, Oak, who is the shepherd who is there from the start of her story until the end and is sort of consistently by her side. I think it's largely due to the fact that he has a very honest way of filmmaking. He wants you to really feel the humanity in the characters, and that he's an outsider. So he didn't grow up with these kind of books in his life. He wasn't studying Austen and Dickens and Hardy at school like we were. And so because he's Danish and he's not from England, he sort of has a fresher perspective on these kind of very ingrained cultural references that we have in our history and in our upbringing. So he can look at things and see them in a different way, which I think is what makes it feel kind of more present and exciting. It's always so informative with a character with costumes, but particularly in a period drama, because you do stand differently in a corset. You have to, because you can't breathe. Everything is sort of changes your physicality, but also these costumes were just so, they marked her journey so clearly, and that you could see when she was wearing her farm clothes that she was truly in herself, and when she veers off into her life with Troy, she dresses differently and she doesn't seem like herself. And then she goes into this great period of mourning where she's wearing black and mourning her husband, which went on for years in Victorian Britain. Women would wear mourning clothes for years.